I want to teach you 4 kinds of enemies that you have in your life. There are 4 levels of enemies in every one of the believer's life. If you are a child of God, you have 4 levels of enemies. Number 1, we have an enemy that we call the enemy without. And taking David's story, this was Goliath. Goliath was the enemy without. He's the kind of an enemy that has been attacking David from without, or the children of Israel from without. And David dealt with Goliath. And let me shock you. When David, I don't celebrate David for killing Goliath, because he still had another enemy to deal with that was even worse than Goliath. We celebrate him for killing Goliath. We think David is a hero for killing Goliath. But let me shock you. He was not done with dealing with the worst enemy. He dealt with Goliath, but there was still another level of an enemy that David needed to deal with. And that is the second kind of an enemy I call the enemy within. This is a dangerous enemy. This was Saul, who was an enemy within. David has dealt with Goliath, but he goes back home in the palace, dodging spears from Saul, a man that he is dining with, a man that he has been eating with. And those are the enemies that you stay with. These are friends, people that are related to you. This enemy is so dangerous because you eat together, you laugh together, you dine together, you do things together. But this is an enemy, and he's the enemy that is killing you so slowly. Don't celebrate yourself because of killing Goliath in your life. You still need to deal with that enemy we call the enemy within. You know them, or you may not even have an idea who they are. They are the ones that are killing you. It could be your closest friend. It could be actually a person that you trust, but they are enemies within. The enemy number 3 is yourself. You are your own worst enemy. You know, David dealt with the enemy without, who was Goliath. He dealt with the enemy within, that is Saul, when he replaced Saul. But later he's a king already, but he's left dealing and fighting himself. When he looks at Uriah's wife and he decides this is a package I need to behold. And you know what happened? He later he slept with Uriah's wife and later kills Uriah. The enemy yourself. You are your worst enemy. I tell people, do not celebrate yourself because of killing the enemy without, dealing with the enemy within, until you're able to deal with the enemy you. The greatest victory is not victory over them, but victory over yourself. You are your worst enemy. You need to deal with that pride, deal with jealousy, deal with anger, deal with gossip, deal with your flesh. The enemy you is the enemy that is killing you. There is the last enemy, the enemy number 4, and that is the sponsor enemy. The sponsor enemy is the main enemy, and this is the devil himself. The devil is the worst enemy. He is the enemy that funds and sponsors the rest of the 3 enemies. He's the one that funds the enemy without. He's the one that sponsors the enemy within. He's the one that is sponsoring the enemy yourself. The enemy you. We need to deal with these 4 levels of the enemy. Now you know that you have enemies you never thought you had. These are the worst enemies, the 4 levels of the enemy.